Hosting, and I am joined today. My guest is a friend and fellow animal lover. Welcome to the bridge, Melanie Davis.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You'll hear a lot of animal noises in the background because, Melanie, you are at a rescue site right now, correct?
That's correct.
What is the place called, and what kind of animals are there?
Well, we have kind of a menagerie right now, but we are called Harmony New Beginnings Animal Rescue. We are located in Sheridan, Oregon. It's kind of by the coastline, a little bit closer to the coastline of Oregon. So we're way over west. We have, currently we have over 100 animals here. I think of those 100 animals, there's only probably less than 10 that are actually belong to the people who started it. There are horses, sheep, goats, rabbits, and chickens, ducks, geese, and turkeys, llamas, and I think that's it.
Wow, that's a lot of animals that need rescuing. What happens why do these things happen? Why do all these animals need homes, and what's going on right now in Oregon that would require so many animals?
Well, we all kind of currently, all over the world really, we're facing situations of people just not always taking care of the animals that they're supposed to take care of, and they don't understand the commitment of an animal, such as, basic things such as feeding, watering, providing them some kind of shelter, taking care of their basic medical needs. Sometimes it's taking care of their hoof care needs. Oftentimes the reasons why shelters exist at all is because somebody has chosen or sometimes have been put in a position where they cannot continue to take care of those things. I think that's pretty easy for most people to understand, but it's always in the actual practice of it that that seems to get some folks in trouble. Shelters oftentimes are taking in animals because somebody didn't figure out their life changes or how those things were going to impact an animal. Currently, we just took in over 122 animals in total. That were most of those geese, the goats, or no, not the geese, the goats, the sheep, the turkeys, the chickens, the ducks. Those ones just came into us because of a seizure, because a person was starving and starving these animals. When you get large amounts of them coming into you like that, it's because of something big, because something was found and reported. And then other shelters like us, we get a phone call saying, can you please take some animals right now and see what we can do? And that's what we do. We step up and with donors. We are 100% volunteer and donor, supported. That's it. Nobody gets paid a paycheck. So it's all blood, sweat, and tears for us. And we live for things like poop, believe it or not. So when we start seeing animals, we live for seeing animals who are pooping, because that means that food is working through their systems correctly, and that means they're probably least likely to die. So it sounds crazy, but and then poop is like shoveling it, and so yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of rescue in my area as well. And one thing that I noticed is that when the economy went wonky, the rescue places really got very full. And I think that a lot of people, it's not on purpose, it's just expenses got away from them and their income went down, and it's harder and harder to make a living. And people say to me, "Oh, you have 6 acres, why don't you get some animals and stuff?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, you got money for fencing and food and vet bills, and sure, I'm just going to get a bunch of animals." Like, no problem. It's a lot of money.
Yep, and exactly. And then there are people who really truly are sick kind of individuals, who think that the bare minimums of feeding just animals is not a big deal. Don't think about things like breeding. Don't think about trying to make sure that they have their basic needs met. There are people who are that don't have the same thought processes like some of us who say, well, you know what, I lost my job and I can't afford to feed a horse anymore. Those things are very, I think those are more common, but when you do run into the big stuff, where people are starving animals, and just flat out neglect, it gets pretty overwhelming for a lot of these shelters and for the general public, because they're the ones that actually foot the bill. So yeah, that's how it works, and a lot of it is the economy will do a lot to it. So yeah, and you should see the amount of people who are buying bunnies right now, getting ready for buying bunnies and rabbits and or chickens and little chicks and stuff like that for Easter, and then they have them for a few weeks, and that they realize it's hard work, and they turn them in or let them loose. So you have those types too; those are fun.
I mean, the only people I know that are raising rabbits in my area are raising them for food.
Yeah, it makes the most sense for a lot of folks. We understand. That's one of the things about our rescue is we're realistic about why people have certain animals, and we realize that some of these animals are for people to eat. And we're not like crazy, like, oh, you must save everyone and you must all be vegans. We're not like that. We're all pretty realistic, and we understand that many times people are raising these animals for food, and that's fine. Raise your animals for food, but for crying out loud, feed them and water them, take care of them. So that's really a huge message for us. Especially for me, when I see horses and stuff like that, people will look for them for food, horses themselves, and that's fine.
Big
shouldn't
thing.
be emaciated.
Yeah, that's a big thing too, because that's a cultural thing. Some people are really against eating horses, and some people are like, what's the difference between eating a horse and a cow? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but like you say, if you're going to have them, you shouldn't be starving them or treating them badly while you have them. So Melanie, how did you get into it? Were you first, were you raised on a farm, and then this is just the continuation of the training you received growing up, or how did you get into it?
Yeah, I was just a little kid when we started getting into horses. I was 8 or 9 years old, right in there, and tried stealing my first horse. I like to tell this story because my brother was younger than me, and I tried to make him jump on a horse and see which one bucked, and the one that wasn't going to buck was going to be mine. And yeah, I started loving animals right then. I thought, oh, they must all belong to me. But that's like, that's just being a little kid. Then I learned how to be responsible for horses, and that was a little bit older when I was like 9 and a half, being more responsible about feeding them and taking care of them. In my family culture, amongst like just with my mom and my brother, we kind of understood that animals were kind of, they're like, I know this is going to sound weird to some folks, but they're our relatives. They're part of this earth, and we need to give them respect. So I was raised in a family with animals, plus, we hunted, and that was never something you took big pictures of yourself with what you hunted. It was something that we took care of our family, and we were thankful for it. And since then, I think that cultivated that feeling in me as an adult still that we need to respect other creatures, and that's kind of always been with me. And my husband, my kids, we all learn compassion and how to, maybe understand that, an animal, though it is an animal, but we are too. And we're relatives to each other, and we can take care of one another. And not all of them are like, want to be your cuddly friend, and that's okay. And they shouldn't. But we do understand the importance of them on this planet, and that's, I can't think, kind of how it has always been for me. I've never understood any other way, I guess, so to say it. So yeah, that's how I've always been involved. So.
I used to milk the goats before school in the morning, things like that. So I was always raised around animals, but we never really had horses. Horses was something I always wanted, but I mean, I got left and things like that. Never got to have my own horse. But my husband teases me, and he pretends like I had a pony, that I'm privileged and I had a pony. But I never did, but he still teases me about it.
Yeah. But funny how many folks, believe it or not, how many folks are well below the average mean household who have horses. Believe it or not. There's actually, I can't remember where that statistic went, but I actually heard from somebody who had heard about this and had told me. She said, believe it or not, the average homeowner makes $20,000 or less. Or horse owner is $20,000 or less, and a year. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, we make more than that. My husband, provides for us very well, and we have 3 horses. And I'm thinking, the amount of care that go into a horse, and I'm thinking, 20. Yeah, like, how does that happen? And so, yeah, it's kind of a strange thing that to hear that statistic. I was, wow, really? And you know what? I think about it, and I think about all the folks when I grew up, and we were pretty. There were times we were dirt poor, seriously dirt poor, where we were, had a home that actually had a dirt floor, and some of those times, it seemed like other people who were around us always had horses, and I think it's a cultural thing. So they just find a way. Yeah, definitely. And also, if you're living in a situation where you're growing your own food or you're living off the land, having an animal that helps you, like a donkey or a horse or something is sort of second nature, I guess. Yeah, exactly. And that's actually one of the things when I was a kid, my My mom and my stepdad both worked for an outfitter that did hunting, and we would actually take, and this was in Idaho, in the Wilderness of No Return area in Idaho. And if anybody looks that up on a map, they'll see it's a very large area. And they don't actually, in certain areas, allow you to bring motorized anything, not even chainsaws, nothing like that. And in order for you to go in there to hunt and camp, you actually had to have everything packed in on a mule or a horse. And this is back in the 80s, you know. So that's what I did. Most of my fall and summer was getting ready for going up into the hunting camp. And we would actually haul all that stuff in. And those horses hauled their own hay. They hauled their own hay up into that mountain, into those areas. They did just as much work as we did, if not more. So they did pay for themselves in their own sense. So anyway, that's, you know, keeps the burden, as they say.
How long would you be there at once? Like, how long would you stay in the camp?
Oh, we would be there for. Sometimes, well, our school was kind of different because we were all stocked away in Idaho, and Elk City, Idaho is, in fact, the place where it was. If you look on a map, it's the end of the road. And hunting is a huge culture there. So all of us kids would have, you know, a week here or a week there off from school for hunting. And so we would be up there for a week and then sometimes another week. Or, you know, if it was still summertime going up and prepping, we were up there for, you know, weeks at a time. We'd be on horseback most of the time, or muleback, because usually kids were put on mules sometimes. They were a little easier. Yeah, so we spent a lot of time up there. And you learn a lot there, too. So you learn how to go without running water for quite a while. Yeah,
yep.
Long time.
So we have spoken before about your involvement with with farm animals and farming, and then when you're in school, what happens when you're in school and you're involved in farming? What organization do you get automatically involved in school?
I never did. That's thing for me. I never got involved in 4-H. That's one of the things it's actually put together by the U.S. government, USDA, and it was a way for people to. At the time, it was about the government experts kind of creating standards for farming and for homes, like canning, sewing techniques, things like that. They were trying to eliminate things like botulism from happening. So they were teaching all of these things to kids to bring home to mom and dad so that they can learn these new techniques and even farming practices like with their animals, which sounds great in theory, but we lost a lot of really good old information that many of our ancestors had known how to do as far as animal husbandry, agriculture, growing their hay, their wheat, doing all kinds of things like their canning. We lost a lot of that information because they started training from the ranks, the kids, into those things, and that's the way they learned it. So that's the way they taught their kids, and it kind of, snowballs from there. That's one of them. Another one is it's called FFA. It's Future Farmers of America. And that one, it pretty much does the same thing. It's usually done through your schools. 4-H is not. It's usually a community thing. But it's all kids. It's all kids programs. Those are usually what people were involved with. I often never had a chance to do those things when I was a kid. I actually used to prepare animals for those people, like especially the horses when I was in high school. So yeah, it's we learned a lot just being around folks who were in that. Some of that information is pretty helpful, I think. But I think there became a point, and I did I ever mention the microchipping to you before?
Yeah, I wanted you to get into
the animals?
that too. How it's gotten into that.
Okay. So the USDA and the U.S. government, somebody in there decided to thought it would be a really great idea for 4-H kids to learn about how to manage your herds with government's help to microchip every one of your animals. Now that sounds kind of strange, I think, to most people because they're thinking, what, you microchip every one of my chickens and microchip all my cows and my goats and my, and all this thing, and that is what they wanted to do. But what they did, they wanted the small farmer, the hobby farmer, not the huge agricultural conglomerate like Simplot, J.R. Simplot, or things like, Hormel, like the pig, they do pig farming and stuff like that. Those are big corporate farm and agricultural folks here in the U.S. And they, Tyson chickens and all of this stuff, and they weren't going to have to pay the price like the smaller folks who, have, maybe they have 4 cows and maybe they have, 18 goats or whatever. They were going to make the big conglomerates just pay for one chip for a whole bunch of these animals. So it might be 100 and some animals that they were going to let just one cow be chipped. And what they were planning on doing with that was I don't know how this ever was going to ever really work anyway, but the government would have every single animal registered with the microchip. And as a result of that, if the county or local government or USDA, anybody who's working for the USDA and the local government, and there's always, in 4-H, there's always somebody who works for the government. And they would actually could decide at any given time, any point in time, that they can come onto your property, and because it's registered with them, that they can come onto your property, and if they deem that the animal, they wanted to test the animal for something, they could seize the animal to take it for whatever purposes. They don't have to give an explanation. They could just take it. They could also destroy it right there or with them. And that is very problematic for everybody who are small hobby farms up to, just about the point of becoming anything larger than that. So it's disturbing. It's very disturbing because the one who's actually paying the higher price is the hobby farm and the hobby farmer. And they are trying to say that it's for health and safety of the animals because they're afraid of things like mad cow disease and all this stuff. Well, the only time that anything like that has ever been found over here in the United States has been with the large agricultural companies. So it never made any sense. And believe it or not, enough people who are very, very smart and very, they kind of don't trust some of what the government wants to do, which they're kind of the outlying kind of folks. They kind of saw that and said, this microchipping thing, number one, sounds like a racket because somebody's making bucks off these microchips. And then, whoever's paying for the website to do all this stuff for, tracking these animals. So it sounds like a monopoly of some kind. And number two, why are we the ones that have to pay this price for unsafe animals or unsafe meat when it's not even us that are putting those animals into circulation with the general public? So that's where it came from, and it was defeated. And those people that were smart started going after the government pretty harshly. I need to pull up that. I'll have to pull up that link for you. But it was a pretty big deal in the early 2000s, so mid to early 2000s. So yeah.
Do you see them trying to bring it back?
Yes.
Yeah.
they keep trying to find ways, and it's been rewritten a few times, and every single time it's been kind of slapped down. But they're kind of getting to the point where they're not sure when they can continue to do so.
So who are the people behind it? Is it big agricultural farms that are behind this, so that it's another thing that puts the small farmers out of business?
Absolutely. That's what a lot of folks say. Yes. And when I say a lot of folks, I mean, I'm talking about people who were in 4-H and left 4-H and left FFA because they were seeing so much overreaching, and they were saying, now who is this benefiting? And that was when they put two and two together, that the government has some kind of contract with somebody who's going to be the chip maker, and they have a contract with big ag, so that they don't have to, so that they can find a way to undermine the small farming community. And you see it all over the place. I know you do with all of this stuff. So yeah.
And I have to also wonder if it's sort of like a testing ground too before it goes to humans. you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So we can
get
it in their animals, and then it's only one step further into them. And you know, the elite see animals anyway. We're food to them.
Right.
So that's scary.
We're being, if not.
But it's encouraging too that people are rejecting it.
Oh yeah. But you want to know what was so funny? It wasn't even on my radar. We had just moved from the Seattle area over to North Idaho, rinky-dink town called Sandpoint, and my neighbor just down the road came over and introduced herself. Really wonderful lady, and she came over with her 2 kids, and she said, "By the way, have you ever heard of this?" And she started talking to me about it, and I mean, now at first, if you've never really thought about how, because I've only ever heard good things about, USDA, and never heard about any kind of problems like this. So at first you're kind of thinking, is this lady out to lunch? What's going on, But this lady had her finger on the pulse of what was going on, and she just was throwing the red flags down, saying, please sign this petition, sign this petition. And it was truly through petition efforts that this actually came, that's how they keep fighting it, and it keeps getting fought over and over and over. So it is through efforts of somebody who just walks up to their neighbor, knocks on the door, and says, "Hi, I don't know you. You're new to the neighborhood, but I'm going to tell you about this." And it was one of the best things It was not only was it mind, it opened my mind up, but that was how I understood that that's the real sense of community. When they're not just concerned about themselves, they're concerned about you too. See, there's horses in your backyard, and they go, "Oh, hey, you don't want this happening to your horses, do you?" And once you understand that it can actually come that close to home and hit you right where it counts, you want to do, you're totally in compliance with what they want to do. But at least you're given a choice.
Yeah. Have you found that people are as willing to share information when it comes to spraying, when it comes to the farming of fruits and vegetables? Things like that.
Well, local, in Oregon, we just moved to Washington just before the new year. Over in Oregon, we were surrounded by orchards, plums and cherries and all those things, just beautiful. But the owner of the orchard, just this last year, because of a petition that actually helped make it into law. Oregon is kind of a funky little state where if enough people petition and get things on the ballot, and then it's brought to the general public to vote on, things can actually happen. It's actually pretty cool. And that was one of the big ones, was spraying. And I know it's kind of controversial, the whole thing with bees and things like that, but until you live right next door to somebody and they spray, and then you notice that bees are like literally on your ground dead.
Mm-hmm.
And
everywhere.
then you start seeing a bird here. Yeah, you start seeing a bird here, a bird there. And then you start thinking, well, my horses are one fence line away from that,
mm-hmm.
you know. And I am outside, you know, weeding my garden, and I'm breathing that. Now, then I understood. It was like, you know, yeah, we do have to speak up. We do have to make these choices about whether we're going to stay silent about it or not. And there was enough done for that guy this year, because the law went into effect, to actually start asking all of his neighbors if he could spray, and he had to show what he was spraying. He had to show I believe he had to show or tell what it was that he was going to be spraying to his neighbors, and they had to say yes or no.
Wow.
That means something.
Yeah.
That means something.
There's a family that's not too far away that suffered injuries, and even the husband died from being poisoned by agricultural spray,
mm-hmm.
chemicals. And
mm-hmm.
so we're supposed to be within the range where there's no spraying. They have, as part of the money that they got and the agreement that they got on the settlement, there's not supposed to be any spraying within a 5-mile radius of their house.
That's
good,
but at the same time, that's tragic.
It's tragic, and also, how is that enforced? It's not. It's not enforced.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and how would you enforce it? You know?
Yeah. Well, I think that there is enough, and I think it has to be about your community. Your community really has to come together at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying like it has to be like even on a huge level. Just getting your neighbors together and saying, hey, there's some evidence that this makes the difference for your longevity. You know, do you want to live a little longer than 4 years? More than this? Like, you know, what kind of thing do you want? What kind of life do you see yourself living? And if it looks like dead in the next 10 years because of this and that, well, great, good for you. Keep on keeping on, you know, but dang it, if you want to live longer than that and you want to be healthy while you're living, hey, maybe we should all kind of talk about this a little bit more, and that's where community can become involved. I'm not saying you have to save the world, but your immediate vicinity and your neighbors, they're important. They're important, and if one is going to be the one that's going to, you know, throw the monkey wrench into all of it, well, then all your neighbors can do something about it with their local authorities and find some way to, you know, make it safer for everybody else. Because it sounds to me like they put up enough of a fight to actually get something done. And when you have those kinds of folks around, you know that you can start putting on their shoulder and asking, how do you do that? How do you do that?
Well, one of the things that I saw was and I think it's the telephone people, they sprayed some sort of green stuff around the plants that were directly underneath all of their poles and things like that. Because back here in the summertime, there's all kinds of vines and probably kudzu and things like that that's growing. But and then it all turned brown, like where they had sprayed it. So I knew it was a chemical. I knew it was probably a herbicide of some kind. And it was right next to the creek.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And those are corporations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they don't care. Nobody tells them you can't do that around here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, up in Sandpoint, Idaho, there was a massive amount of milfoil. Have you ever heard of milfoil?
No.
Milfoil, it can be used like as a good thing, but it can also choke out fish in a lake, and that's where this was, proliferating. in large amounts, and it was actually killing some of the fish that are in this huge. It's the fifth in Sandpoint. They have the fifth largest freshwater lake in the United States. It's one of the deepest, and milfoil was taken over. It's just taken over like big time, huge blooms of it, and it was brought in. It wasn't, it was brought in on somebody's boat. That's how it came in, and the county thought, and the state thought, well, let's just put this chemical in there and we'll kill it. Okay, well, this is where people swim. This is public city beach right here, and we have children taking lessons for swimming lessons in the summer, and they thought it was totally and completely okay. After a few weeks, oh yeah, it'll take care of it. The current will take it all out. No, no, it doesn't. This is a lake. It's it's like, yes, there's a river that feeds into it, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of permeates everywhere else. So the community actually had to get together and find out how to combat milfoil in a natural way. And they found a predator. They found a predator of milfoil, something that loved to eat it, in these little weevils. And they actually had pressured the county enough to purchase these weevils and disperse them in the areas where the heaviest amount of milfoil was. And it was non-toxic to humans, and it wasn't going to hurt humans to have those little weevils in there, and it worked, funny enough. So that the wonderful salmon and all the other animals that were living there were not being choked out. Funny, huh?
Yeah, amazing how that works. Wow. I wish that more people were curious, really curious enough to find solutions to that. Sometimes there's a real lack of curiosity, or
yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to.
Mhm. Yeah, and guess what? Those people that told me about that were the same people who told me about the microchipping.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're connected.
So since we're on the subject of water and fish and things like that, and you're out on the West Coast area, what is the reality there of people thinking about Fukushima coming from Japan?
It's a hot issue. It's a hot issue. Oh boy. There are, because people come over here to see the whale a lot of the time. There are many tribes along our Native American tribes who are here in Oregon and in Washington and right along the coastline. And I know that I had recently seen something. It's probably been last spring, I think. So it's coming up on a year now. The last thing I had seen was that some of the debris from Japan was still coming across, and people were supposed to report that. And I know it was kind of frustrating for some of the tribal folks, along the area. So some of the, they're not always reservations right on the waterfront, so to speak, but they're right close. And I know that I think somebody had said there was going to be an independent study done by one of the tribes who do have fishing rights in a certain area. And I do know that there's been other independent scientists, like people who are willing to actually test independently for certain public groups to see, what's reading out and stuff like that. Because people will not. There's a lot of folks, like especially in the Portland area, who if you used to say, oh, I got this kale, from over off of the coast, they'll look at you and say, I'm not eating that. That's going to kill me. Thank you very much. So, it's not really far from people's minds. And still isn't. And it's been how many years now since Fukushima? Like
right.
3? Are we going on 3 years now?
Yeah, it's been
and,
some time.
You know, it's not far. Yeah. There's been some massive die-offs, too.
Yeah, talk about the die-offs, and then I want to get into if people are getting into the solutions about what to do to clean it up.
Well, one of the big ones that even my chemistry teacher from high school, who I still keep in contact with on Facebook, had posted a thing about the sea stars, starfish to some people. That's what they call them, but they're called sea stars. And a lot of them are struggling. And he was mentioning that, you know, and he kayaks out on the ocean. You know, I have seen other people in other articles and things like that have said stuff about the sea star population being hurt, and they think that it might be radiation. I don't know that everybody gets the same answer if it's yes or no that it is radiation, but it's definitely, like I said, it's not far from everybody's mind, and it definitely is still a hotbed issue over here. And then some of the solutions, like I said, there are people who have talked about creating, what is it? They thought about creating some kind of like spongy things, like trying to catch some of it somehow. And I'm like, there's been some weird stuff that has all been being talked about. Like, it doesn't seem like it's like radiation doesn't seem.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like something that makes sense to me. Like, how does a sponge?
Yeah, and then
how does that take care of it?
I've seen also all kinds of stuff about, plant cannabis around there. You know, seaweed supposed to clean up radiation, and it's like it just seems
right.
It's going to take a lot more than that, I think. But
yeah, it's going to take some kind of. I think if anybody really wants to do something, they're going to have to do something out in the ocean. They're going to have to do something out in the ocean, like some kind of station that'll have to be, able to filter stuff. But that's really difficult. You know, once water is irradiated, it's not. I don't think it's easy to. I think it's almost next to impossible to take it out so far with the information that I think we have now. I haven't seen good enough solutions, and I live not too far from Hanford, which for some folks not knowing what that is. Oh boy, Google that one. It's a lot of fun. That's the U.S. government and involved in nuclear and radiation stuff. So that's fun too.
What are they doing at Hanford?
Right now, there's currently leaks. There are currently radiation leaks, and it's not far from Yakima Nation. Which you've heard of Yakima Nation, right? Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, the Yakima tribe. And you've probably heard of the Kennewick Man.
Right.
And that was the remains and stuff. And so that's right over in the same area. That's a large vicinity, but it's all in the same area where all that happened. But there were actual tribal members who were having more cancer and things like that, and that's because of dumping actual radiation and all this nasty just all the radiation sludge and everything like that, and they were actually just dumping it in the ground back in the 50s. So currently what's happening is there's something that was supposed to have been secured, and now it's leaking. And we're suffering from, birth defects, more cancer, and birth defects such as called encephaly or something like that, and it's where the baby is born without a brain. And other massive issues. Yeah. And there was a local article about a year ago. I think I had even pointed it out, and you and I had a quick conversation about it. And you had gotten a song, and you said, "Oh, listen to this one."
Yep.
And it was a Nick Cave song.
I do remember.
And it was about babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was about babies being born without brains.
Mm-hmm.
And he sometimes I swear to God, that guy, I swear he's like getting visions, and he's just singing about them.
I think all artists do that. They tap into something. But it seems to me that's the epitome of what could go wrong. Like, it doesn't get worse than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It doesn't. Yeah, the radiation that's happening in Hanford, even still to this day, they have such huge fences because when deer or other wildlife get in there, they actually have to kill it. Because if you drive around out there, you can actually see little flags where there's radiation, live radiation and stuff. And I've witnessed that. I worked out there for a short period of time. Yeah, I was done. I was like, oh, this can kill me. I'm leaving. But it creates all kinds of problems. And it's really funny because I know it's not just here. It's everywhere. There are people all over the place, over in Europe, and there's places in, all over the United States where they did their testing. And, you can look up online to see where nuclear testing and things like that were done in your area. And they have to now say that, if it's happened. Mm-hmm. But they won't tell you, when the last time was that they did a testing of any kind of water to see what's going to happen with it. So it's really unfortunate. More people are not concerned with it, and they should be.
I think people are overwhelmed about it. And but what's really maddening to me is that it continues to be presented as something that could be safe when it never could be safe ever. And it
no.
Yeah. It gets to the heart of that profit over.
The cost benefit that they see is, they see something that says, oh, well, the benefit to the cost, the real major downer of it is, well, you could die. But, we'll be okay as long as we're going to get our energy, as long as we're going to get this and that and this, we'll be okay. We can figure that out. We'll get that technology when we need it. But the truth is nobody's really come forward with any great technology on how to deal with it. I mean, it's leaking for crying sake, It's leaking currently in a place that we were told it wasn't going to continue to leak, and we're told about Fukushima, oh, don't worry about it, it'll be okay. It's not really reaching over across all that water. And it's like, no, when the debris is showing up, come on, who are you talking to? Do you think we're all stupid? Well, apparently they do. So what happened? And I think you're right, we're overwhelmed.
What happened to the animal rescue world when all the animals start to...
Oh, well, we're going to have nothing but trying to find ways to euthanize them all and to be able to tell people don't eat them. That's really hard when you start having something happen where everybody's like, well, we got to eat something.
Yeah. So people don't want to go there, so they just don't fight at all.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. It's, and I always think about everybody's always, around here, the salmon are a big deal. Salmon are a huge deal. The salmon, where did they go? They go to the ocean. Right. Where do they come back to? The fresh water. What are they bringing from the ocean to the fresh water? and all the critters that eat them. And that includes critters such as ourselves who eat them.
Right.
And that includes native tribal groups too, who have fishing rights. And even they don't have a say, it seems like.
Yeah, the whole system is built so nobody has a say. But it looks like everybody else has a say except you. So people just fuck each other.
Yeah. So they do. It's a scary situation. We laugh, but that's all you can really do, because you kind of go, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. But I think ultimately people still need to keep themselves informed, try to make the better decisions for themselves. I don't eat the salmon. I really honestly don't. I don't eat it anymore. I haven't eaten it. I haven't had it since from the West Coast since 2004. That was the last time I had salmon. So, honestly, try to stick to some freshwater lakes up in the high mountains where you can get kokanee salmon. That's good. So that's fine with me. Try to get your game where it's not going to the ocean.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and you know what? I was just thinking. This just was a huge thought. Have you ever heard of Tillamook?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Tillamook is there's huge dairies over here. And they're right there by the ocean and inlets and stuff. So, you could possibly be having irradiated cow milk and cheese curds.
and it could also
be
organic, too. It could still be labeled organic, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it can. You're absolutely right. It just totally dawned on me, and I'm thinking, what's in my fridge right now? Do I have any Tillamook sour cream in my refrigerator? Oh, it's terrible. I just thought about that, and then I'm like, no, okay, another brand we can't be buying for a while. I just thought about that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes connecting all these dots. And you're right. I think this is where the overwhelming sense comes in. It's not just about, it'll be okay. I think you actually really have to make some choices for yourself about it all.
Do what you can.
It's tough. That's right. Like, holy crap.
Especially
you're not going to die from radiation.
Especially when it comes back to the animal rescue thing. I rescue cats, and it's not something I set out to do. It just happens, and they just come. And I've never been to the SPCA or anything like that. Cats just come to us, the whole family.
That's right. And what else comes to you? What else comes to you? You guys also have wildlife that comes to you.
Birds, cats and birds.
I think, and deer. And don't you guys also have the raccoons?
Raccoons and possums as well, yes. That's true.
Oh, yeah. And, I think if you really think about it, what is the shelter? It's a sanctuary. It's all the same thing. It's a place. It's a safe place. And people, anybody, can be a safe place if they truly want to be one, for their fellow man or for their fellow critter that's also in the earth. You can make a choice if that's what's good for you. And I think you reap what you sow, kind of thing. Do you not feel like you opened up your property and since then you've just seen it bloom? Like you consciously set that energy out saying this is a safe place. And what happens? Yeah. And the wildlife respond because they know.
And we feed them too. You know, and to me, it's really special that, like that, the hummingbirds come every year on my birthday, and I make them the nectar, and they stay here all summer, and and they come back every year, and it is a relationship that you have. So it's important.
Yep. It is, and I'll tell you when and it's the same thing here, like being involved in rescue. When an animal comes in, not all the time you know, is it an easy thing? Oftentimes, most people say, well, it's an animal, it'll go where it needs to go. But the truth is animals have relationships, very important ones. Some animals tend to be more loners, but they do require some kind of interaction with other beings. So people say all the time, well, cats don't care, but they do. If they didn't care, they would never show up. Even if it's just for food, they would never care. They would never let you look at them. You would never see them. You know, there would be no interaction if they truly didn't care in their own capacity to care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing when you get animals who are coming from an abusive situation, and I'm talking abuse, like they've been purposely starved. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. You know, like, so our rescue took in 2 horses who were intentionally starved by a spouse who was angry and a psychopath. Not even a joke. This man is a psychopath. You know, a person doesn't do that to get back at another person, unless you are one.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say something kind of horsey talk here, but anybody is welcome to look it up. There's this thing, and it's called a body score. And on animals, that's what determines if they are, you know, emaciated, or if they are obese, or somewhere in the middle. And that scale goes up to a 10 for horses, and it's a body score for horses. And the horses that came into my care in December, 2 of them, were a 2 sliding to a 1 being completely emaciated, ribs all backbone showing, tailbone, no flesh really to think of, nothing covering the ribs except for hair and hide. And I had 2 sliding to 1s showing up at my house. And this person did this out of spite to an animal.
Wow.
And yes, yeah. And he also, this person who is a psychopath, also crippled another horse, completely crippled it by not having wounds looked at. And it used to be a jumper horse, so something that was actually in competition by its owner. And now it's no longer ever going to be able to see those days again. And that's very painful for a lot of folks who enjoy their animals in different ways. When you see something that's now, you know, used to be healthy and now it's, you know, 100% not healthy. You know, and hard. So, you know, a lot of fun for us folks who have to do the work and rehab them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what I'm talking about is, you know, when we have those animals walk through our doors, we have to think about the people who made them that way. We do think about it. We don't want to only think about it because we want to see animals, you know, make some gains and stuff, but it throws their world right out of whack. And horses are herd animals, and when they're torn away from their larger herd, it creates anxiety within them. And so I'm dealing with, you know, anxiety horse, and another one who's just slowly starting to come around where he's, you know, kind of accepting of another human being for a little while. These horses were so starved, and these aren't the only ones. So you can think of any animal that's ever been starved, and I'll tell you what happens with an animal that's been starved. When an animal has been starved, that means that they have seen a human being just about every single day come through and either give them a very small amount of food or none at all, or make them, try to find food. And when that animal stops looking at the human as help, they will not pay attention to you anymore. They'll look away, like intentionally look away, because they know that by looking at that person that it's not going to help them. And they kind of, they stop being social with humans when that happens. And they kind of become despondent when a human is around, or not trust that person anymore. And so when those horses came to me, and I've seen other animals who have had similar things happen, that horse will literally just check out. Like, when a human is around, there's absolutely zero trust. The only thing they want to do is kind of get away or stay away from that person, because they're number one, there's no benefit for them. They're not going to get food. They're not going to get the water that they need. And it's extremely depressing. It's very depressing for some of us who do this stuff. But it's the reality, and we have to find ways. We have to make new inroads with that animal to show them once again a human is a safe thing, or it can be a safe thing again. And it takes a long time for that to happen, because, in order to change an animal's mind, how do you do that? Do you speak their language? I mean, we don't. You know what I mean? We think we can't just start talking horse, we can't start talking dog or cat, if something starves. You have to find little ways, little inroads to find that trust again. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, we created these animals. We create these animals every day. We create these animals through not being careful with breeding, being responsible about what's being bred, not trying to find adequate homes for them, not trying to find, places for them to go. Like, say, if you can't, then you need to euthanize them. You know what I mean? Because when you just leave these animals out there, they can't just walk to the refrigerator, open the door, and feed themselves. It requires some help. And the same thing for an animal that's stuck in a pen, who has nowhere else to go. It sees, nothing but fence around it, and there's no food to be had. What do? They just starve, or they start eating each other. And if there's another one to eat. And it happens. And, it leaves the work to somebody to do that and find those inroads again and start to build trust again. That's what I find. That's what I see. And this brings me to a really good point. So remember that post that you posted earlier this week about decent people and heroes?
Yes. Yeah.
That totally struck home. That struck home for me. You want to know why? Because when you work in a rescue, or you work with, you are a rescue, you're a sanctuary, right? Mm-hmm. So when people find out that you provide sanctuary animals, they look at you and say, wow, there must be something amazing about you to do that. Like, yeah, you're a good person. You're a decent person. You have respect for others around you. And you understand that animals also need that similar respect. That makes you a decent person. You're doing the decent thing. Right?
Right.
So we're not heroes. I'd love for people, people say it all the time, oh, you're an animal angel, or, you guys are amazing heroes. Like, no, we aren't. We're the decent people who step forward and say, we raise our hands and we say, do it with me. Come and volunteer with us. Join us. Help us too. Because you're decent people. If you're decent people and you recognize another decent people, we're not just heroes. We are people just like you. We just were given an opportunity to do something about it. And we saw ourselves being able to fulfill that opportunity. And that's all it is. It's just every day feeding and watering. It's every day making sure that the animal's feet are trimmed, and it's everyday stuff like that. And that makes you a decent person, not necessarily a hero.
it
you know,
should be the
that's the reality.
Right, not the standout. It should be the standard. Yeah, and for me,
that's right.
I get into trouble when I expect other people to be heroes, you know, rather than just to be my own hero. You know, when you're talking about the emotional health of an animal, that's very real with the rescue.
Mm-hmm.
They suffer, and you can really feel it.
Mm-hmm.
One of our rescues was abused, and his person was mentally ill, and it took a long time for us to, you know, he was at the point under this person's care where he had stopped, you know, like giving himself baths and stuff like that. He was a very depressed cat, and so he got the, you know, and for a while, if you would move too quickly, he would duck down like in fear. And this is a big boy. This the biggest boy cat I've ever seen. So, but
in Maine Coon?
Yes, he is. He's a Maine Coon. Yep. But fortunately, we were able to get him back with his sisters, and we have another cat that was abandoned. Like her people just left her, and it took us a year to get her to come inside. And then we feed feral cats as well. We have 5 inside, and then we feed the feral cats, and there's 2 of them. It's taken 2 years to get them to come on the porch. And one of them will let me pet her now. Yeah, she lets me pet her, but only when I have food. Otherwise, she runs away.
And those are the inroads, right? They're the best inroads. They're the easiest ones.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you remember this? Do you remember like towards the fall when I don't know if I tagged you in it. There was a cat that showed up at our place. We were not really cat people, so to speak. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on, and this emaciated cat showed up, and it actually was interesting because it went kind of against the grain. I guess there's an exception to every rule where an animal doesn't always necessarily ask for help. Sometimes if they're bad enough in a bad enough way, they'll just go off and die.
Right.
This one actually walked up my driveway, and when it saw me, it flopped over. The cat just flopped over. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, you're here. Okay.
I can get
that. So I got there. I picked the animal up. Yeah, he did. She did. And we found out it was a she. I didn't even know how to figure out if it was a girl cat or a boy cat. I am that bad. I was asking for help, saying, what do I do with this cat? Now we've had barn cats, and they're easy, but this is obviously some kind of cat who says, by the way, you're now my human.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they
yeah, and that cat. Yes, and I am amazed by some of that stuff. I'm absolutely amazed by it. It when animals do something and they reach out to a human being, it has got to be like us, talking to ants. You know what I mean? Like, or I don't know how to explain it. Like, you have to really go outside your species to try, not even a mammal, another mammal. Like, in their minds, it's got to be like, I'm going to reach out to this human being, or I'm going to actually decide to love it, or show some kind of, affection for it when they're scratching on you, and they're like, hey, I'm going to scratch on you, and I want you to scratch me back, and you do it, and then they start talking to you, they'll start, that kind of, I know, I'm totally a dork, sorry, but I had to do that. They'll whinny at you, they'll whinny at you every morning. They'll look at you and they'll say, well, hey, are you bringing me some of that yummy food that you always bring? And, and they'll just kind of, and you're just like, oh, okay. They're deciding to talk to you. They're expecting you to somehow connect with them because they've truly accepted you. And, most folks don't put those things together, that it's got to be like talking to an alien. They got to be half the time going, I don't know if it's actually going to understand you this time or not, but I'm pretty sure I want the oat and not that other crap. Leave the oil off, Mom. I don't like the oil stuff. Don't you see that I'm pushing that stuff to the side? I don't want to eat that stuff, you know? So, you know, when critters reach out to us, it's just amazing to me. You know, we are so not like that. We have to have.
So I get a lot of that.
Yeah. Critters are amazing things, and you know, since I started working specifically with this rescue, I have learned so much. I learn something every day. I really do. I think about animals, I learn something new. I to get rid of old information in my brain. Oh, well, we used to do it this way, and when you find out that that there's a better way, a more effective way of helping and caring for these critters, boy, I tell you, you know, it's worth it. It's worth it to know it. I love it. I used to do stuff with Boy Scouts. You know that. I told you that a long time ago. I used to work with the Boy Scouts. Mm-hmm. It is so much harder to work with other people's kids than it is to work with animals. It's wonderful to work with animals. There's no... I mean, if a horse is going to throw a temper tantrum, it looks entirely different than when a 10-year-old is doing it. 10-year-old boy. And I'll take the horse doing it every time. So, yeah, I don't think in all the years that I've done volunteer work, which have been a long time, I've done so much volunteer work in my life. For churches, you know, hey, don't hang me for that. I have since, you know, come around. But I have learned that animal rescue, in the words of the founder who founded this rescue, she says it's a giant black hole of need. And it's the truth. It's always something needing to be taken care of. Something is always getting in trouble. Something's always, you know, coming through. You know, you're going to have 100 animals coming, you know, next week. Or wait, we're going to have new homes for 20 of them, you know. But you're going to get that refilled by another horse that, you know, is going to need to find a home or a soft place to land because it's in trouble. And it's not about, you know, you realize that the human issue, that's what you're actually dealing with. You're not actually dealing with animal problems. You're dealing with human problems because of humans. These are the effects of humans. And it's almost easier to accept that you can fix or help an animal than it is for you to fix or help a human, because it's a much harder road to hoe. I don't think I could ever do that. I don't think I've ever found a way to fix a human, you know, besides trying to work on myself. So animals at least will be a little, if you're going to offer them that safe place, they're more than willing to meet you there. It seems like, you know, and some of them don't, but, you know, they're the exception, not the rule. But
yeah, that's
anyway.
I love that I've been able to document this relationship with Harold the orange cat and how he showed up all skinny and feral, and now he's a big, cat, happy house cat. Pretty amazing.
I am such a fan of Harold, because one of these days you're going to get a boy cat named Dave. Okay, so follow me here with the Space Odyssey thing. I'm like, oh, you're going to have Hal and you're going to have Dave, and one of these days Hal's going to say, I can't do that for you, Dave. Okay.
Actually,
total sci-fi. See, that's
the one big boy. Like, we don't call him his name that he was called by the guy who abused him. We actually call him Mr. Whiskers or Dave now. And but we call him Dave because for a while the guy was threatening to come and take his cat back. And we would say, Dave's not here.
That's awesome. Good for you guys. Good for you guys.
So he's safe now.
That's so funny because you do have a Hal and you do have a Dave, and you could totally do something with it. And if you think about it, Hal is orange. Think about Hal in the movie. He was a red eye.
Well, here's the other story behind the orange cat thing. My son always wanted an orange cat, but the black ones kept coming into our lives. And I go, someday, your orange cat's going to come. And I saw the cat. I saw Harold running around as a kitten with the other barn cat. And I thought, that's his orange cat. And the reason he had a thing for orange cats was because when he was 5, he did his first sweat lodge. And it was in Pennsylvania on a farm in the middle of winter. And so when we came out, we were all steaming. And he went up to the farmhouse and he sat down in the rocking chair on the porch. And all these little tiny orange kittens came up and they were all purring and crawling all over him. And he was giggling and laughing. And ever since then, he said, I want an orange cat. But that's how Harold is. He's very affectionate, just like that. He'll just crawl all over the surface. Just very, very affectionate.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful. Children are absolutely, they get critters, because maybe it has something to do with size, maybe it has to do with the fact that, it seems like adults kind of rule the world, for them. But they kind of, most kids, I'm not going to say all kids, but most kids just get a sense of an animal that, hey, this is the kind of critter I want to be around, and they do it. They do it. In fact, here at the rescue, there's a young man who is part of the family that founded this, and his name's Mike, and he is just a sweetheart. This kid, he can't stand the thought of, he's got such a tender heart that he sees, animals and says, you can't send them to slaughter. You can't, it's kind of like watching Charlotte's Web kind of thing, where the little girl is like, save it, and he really does, and he's got this giant heart, and all these critters came in, and he's, helped his mom day in, day out over the last 30 days with these 100 animals, and he stepped into that. I mean, when kids, you give the power to a kid to do something and to love something or make a choice to love something, they get it set in their mind, and that's the way it's going to stay. And they actually make stuff happen a heck of a lot faster sometimes for adults to notice. And they step in where they need to, and it's like your son making a choice saying, I think I'm going to have myself an orange cat, and he's going to be determined someday to have that orange cat. And guess what? That orange cat's there, isn't he?
Yep.
So,
it's also his turn. It's also his turn to name Sam. So every year the grandkids get to name the lambs, and this year it was his turn, and this year it was a black sheep that got, the mother didn't accept it. Every year there's one lamb that the mother doesn't accept, and we have to bottle feed it. And so we bottle feed it, and then we put it back into the herd, and it gets reintroduced to the herd. But it's and it works. It works. They go right back into the herd, and even have their own lambs and things like that. So this year he gets to name a lamb, and it's a black lamb. That's right now.
Did he name it yet?
No, he just went up yesterday.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
All right. Can't wait to hear about what he chooses for a name. I wonder if it's going to be Bart.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to have something to do with the Simpsons, probably. Yeah.
That kid cracks me up. I love it. I love his style. He is so cool when it comes to his art and doing the Bart Simpson stuff. Oh, it cracks me up. I love it. Every time I see it, I'm thinking, this kid's got a real knack for cartooning. This might be a really good medium for him for a little while. He may need to do some sequencing of pictures and putting some stuff in storytelling. I'll bet you he just love it.
Now, I'm wondering, do you homeschool your kids, or do they go to public school?
Both. I have two that I'm currently homeschooling, but they've all been homeschooled before. And then My one who's in public school, he's in high school. He's a junior in high school, or 11th grade for some folks. I don't know if they've ever heard of a junior. I don't know how it is. I know you have people across the pond, and I don't know how they say that. But he's 16 years old, and so, he made a choice that he wanted to do that because there were some specific classes that he really wanted to take. And that's okay. That's fine. He's part of that process. He can make choices too. But, we have lots and lots of discussion at home. When we start talking about history or anything like that, boy, whew, that can get kind of lively.
Sure.
But, we've homeschooled. Our oldest is 18. We've homeschooled since the second grade. So, and now he's going to college. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking about homeschooling my son again, but he's an only child, so I'd have to get him into some other activities where he could socialize, and I'm just not impressed right now with his schooling experience.
If you really think about it, what kind of socialization is actually happening in most classrooms is they have to sit there, listen to the teacher. They get in trouble if they talk. They get in trouble if they move. They get in trouble if they breathe. And in fact, the woman who runs is the founder of this rescue, she also homeschools. Mike, I mentioned him earlier. He gets homeschooled, and that's how they're able to successfully do all of this stuff. And they have him involved in activities that they choose to be involved in, and it totally works for them. And I think that, homeschooling sounds like a daunting thing, but if you look at enough things and you have a child that, number one, a child that reads, that enjoys reading.
Right, yeah.
And, you actually have kind of a leg up on some of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he gets in trouble at reading. That's
really?
a sign that they're boring the crap out of him. Yeah, he gets in trouble for reading at inappropriate times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. We actually, there was a time when I was thinking I would have to move my kids into a public school. I was switching schools in the same town. I was going to go ahead and move them into the new school, but the school was huge. It was really huge for a small town. Really a huge amount of students per teacher class size. It was a lot bigger than I felt it should be for such a small town. And so I spoke with the person who is the principal of the school, and we had a long discussion about, how I homeschool. And I think she talked to me for an hour and a half, and she told me, she said, you know what? She said, I'm having this conversation with you, and I just got to ask, do you have a college education? I said, no, I don't. I don't have a formal college education. She said, so how is it that you are able to have like this long conversation with me about education and do so well? And I said, because I'm well read and because I understand what I'm doing and I understand the direction that I'm going with my kids. And she said, I feel really confident that if you decided that you were going to homeschool your kids, that they're going to be just fine. She said, just keep fostering them a love for reading and, make sure that their math is good and all this stuff, that they can do it and understand concepts. And she said, really, honestly, you're going to be doing it so much better for your children because you just seem like you're in tune with your child. And I think, Carrie, you probably know so much more about your kid than any other person could probably, besides your husband, tell about how your child learns.
Right.
And when you know that, and when you are well read enough to know what's going on and what direction, when you ask your child what direction they want to go, as far as their education. You have a world at your fingertips to go and get that information now anymore. It's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And fostering that love of reading is one of the best ways for anybody at all to be able to get a proper education in the sense of like, hey, they can actually understand the world around them and have good comprehension level about it. So yeah, I encourage you, if that's the direction you want to go again, you know that you probably will do just fine. Socialization isn't really, it's people really talk about that like it's some kind of like amazing thing going on in the schools when to be perfectly honest with you. What in the world are we talking about here? What kind of socialization are you talking about? You mean the one where we learn about other psychos in your classroom?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Well, and that's the other thing he gets in trouble for is trying to socialize, and they tell him all the time, you didn't come here to socialize. Okay, so
I know. They all say that.
I just got a text about the name that Connor gave to the lamb. He named them the lamb Ninja.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome. You can't see him, huh? It's the invisible lamb. He just shows up and the food is gone.
Yeah.
You gotta love it. Oh, man. Ninja has been the word, like, in the last couple of weeks. I just keep seeing ninja all over the place. Like, well, isn't that funny? It's a ninja, so that means you can't see them, and they're just so ultra cool. And then I found out from somebody, I think it was one of my kids, said, oh, did you know that ninjas don't really all wear just black? They also wore blue because it helped the moon not shine on them so brightly and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever, fine, sounds good to me.
I think it was,
gotta love kids for bringing information to you.
Yep. I think it's because she it attacks the bottle, so like a ninja. That's what I was told.
That's very great. I love it. How awesome is that? No, come on. There is now a sheep in this world called Ninja. I mean, how cool is that? And so like, it's pooping, Ninja's pooping. You can say all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Ninja's getting its wool shaved,
And you could be assured that
awesome.
Ninja currently had a diaper on because Ninja's in the house.
That's right. Those aren't throwing stars. They're sticky and they're round.
Yeah, and the lambs, they put the dog, and the like their puppies, the way that they play, and because they're in the house, the ones that, and then they get reintroduced to the herd or the flock, and they start acting like sheep again. They all come when you call them by their name too.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that way. But the farm.
I think it's awesome. Well, there's such.
My mom's farm, the house burned down in December.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have to haul water up there while they're rebuilding the house. So I was thinking maybe the thing that I have trouble scheduling when you're sending your kids to public school is you can't really teach them. Well, you can, but it's more difficult to teach them life skills and like to build their own schedule about in caring for themselves and their independence. It kind of takes away from that the momentum that you build when you're teaching your child life skills like that. It sort of takes away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and I've noticed that he doesn't have as many chores because he has all this freaking homework to do. So he doesn't have really time to do the amount of chores he should be doing at this age. And so that's why
right.
and really, I mean, he's getting old enough now to where he can do a lot more with the garden as well. And we need him to do a lot because we're old and our bodies are falling apart.
Blowing those weeds, they're really difficult.
Yeah.
You know,
Telling you.
picking off the things that you can't see, trying to find the aphids. Like, hey, are those aphids? What am I looking at?
Right.
Oh, man.
Right. And that's what organic farming is. It's so much weeding. It's so much work. That's why people don't want to do it, because it's so much more work than just spraying thing, you know.
They crap out all the time. Yep.
Yeah. And you have to get experimental.
You know. Yeah. Yep. And you know what? You know what happens when your kid is, you know what happens when your kid is a part of your family doing it, you know, doing work like that? They are more invested and they're more invested in your family. And I know Carrie Lee, I'm going to give a big shout out to her because, you know, I love seeing all the times that she puts out stuff about her children creating things like baking when her daughters were baking. That is an investment in their, I mean, that's a kind of a funky word because it sounds all financial, but the truth is that's what it is. It's an investment in the family. It's them bringing something together, saying that this is us. We are part of this. We're not just shut out and have the adults do it. You know how many kids are not allowed to cook in their own home? It's incredible, you know, because we think that kids are incapable of doing it. Bull crap. Come on, let's think about it. You know, we don't need our kids to be illiterate. We don't need our kids to be, you know, unable to cope in the world for things like that they actually need to do. But they darn sure should be able to be contributing members in their home, in their tribe, their community, you know, their band. You know, they need to have those jobs so that they can be invested and taken seriously, too, because they are members of it. They're not just these small people that, you know, have nothing better to do than nothing. And I think it's really important. I think you understand that, and I think Carrie Lee understands it, and other people like Zita and her, you know, her son. People who get it, who understand that their child has a contribution to humanity, and it's real. It's very real. We have to stop ignoring that, you know, as a society. But you know, we can't change out everybody, right? So we can only do the ones we can.
Yeah, and I really
make the impact where they matter the most.
Yeah, I really think it's important that we're teaching our kids how to survive. And you know, when I was a kid, it was, you know, my mother made her way out of poverty through education, and so that was the promise. You know, is that you too will you know, you'll certainly not fall back into poverty if you have an education, which is not true anymore. You know, so so I struggle with wanting my son to be able to go to college if that's what he wants to do, but also knowing that it's a tremendous waste of money, and that, you know, he can, he can do what he wants to do without it. It's tough. We got a lot of.
Well, my oldest son. My oldest son, Donovan. I'm really proud of him, and I'm not saying that I'm not proud of everybody else, but he's the oldest, and he's going through the first things like deciding what he's going to do with his life as an adult. You know, as he becomes an adult. I'm very proud of him and his idea of what do I want to do in my life. And he started learning about tiny houses, and I'm sure you've heard of those. And he was around enough people in North Idaho who were off-grid, and he was around enough people who were coming up with innovative ideas on things like organic farming. who are truly doing it organic and doing it for, consistent amount of time to make a difference in their lives. And he was thinking about, we've been pressuring him, because we were like, hey, you need to probably go to college. And he's thinking, I don't really want to go to college. I really don't want to do that. And he resisted and resisted and resisted it. He's only going to college right now to get a few things that he's needed for his own education that he's determined that he wants. But it's going to be paid all out of pocket, no debt involved. It's all community college stuff, skills that he needs and that he feels he needs and he understands that he needs. And he plans on taking whatever it is that he gets from it, and he's going to turn that around and start his own business trying to do something with tiny houses. And he's, more than willing to go work a summer, learning how to build with a builder. He's learning about straw bale houses. He's been learning about those for, about almost a year now. Alternative houses, yurts, how to build yurts. The kid is just pouring his brain into it. Before he was looking at, fashion and things like that and sewing and I know people are going to maybe laugh. I don't know. But, here's this 18-year-old boy who's, getting into sewing and, and they're like, why? And he's like, well, why not? What, come on. And he was getting a lot of flack for it. But you know what he did is he resisted Joe, my husband and I, he resisted us saying, I don't want to do 4 years of college. And here's why. And I'm proud of him for sticking to his own idea on it. It's not just to be, rebellious. It was, listen, I thought about this, and I feel this is what's right for me, and I'm proud of him for it. So thank you for letting me say that. But I don't think I've ever had a chance to tell you how awesome it is to have your kid do that, and that's going to be Connor someday. He's going to make his own choices for himself. Because of being a good parent, you will have taught him to make his own decisions, whether you agree with him or not, but hopefully he'll make the ones because he stands firm in who he is, and I think you make every effort to make that available to him as it is right now.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing now is that school is getting so demanding that it's taking away from the momentum of teaching him life skills that he needs. And so the time that I could teach him whatever he's learning in school in the amount of time that he's doing his homework, and then instead of being in school, he could learn life skills and he can help around the house and he can, help rescue animals and he can help with the garden and things like that. So, but I'm going to get a lot of pushback.
Yeah, well,
that much.
Well, if you really think about it, homeschooling, most people who do it do it right, for their kids and stuff and for their home. When they really are working at it, they're putting only in about, if they're doing it they're doing it so that it fits their family, it shouldn't be a massive pressure. You should be able to be flexible with it. It should be able to be something that, if we can't do science today, we're going to do science tomorrow, and we're going to make sure that we understand this. If we're going to do social studies, we're going to do this, and create your own curriculum, or you can go with whoever curriculum you want. But ultimately, what you have there is you have the power to have them look at their world, and you can look at it through your own lenses in such a way that they can actually find some access to it. It's not like at school where it's maybe you might touch on science for half an hour. In a couple of weeks, you know what I mean? You're not going to completely walk away with an understanding of some of this stuff. In homeschooling, you can spend a month doing science, and guess what? You just incorporated math into it. You incorporated, social studies, because that has a lot to do with science too. History and things like that are all parts to play in that. And reading is all part of it too. You can concentrate on a heck of a lot more really gratifying information than the disinformation that we're given. The quick, here's some facts. Now get those facts memorized. What do they mean to me? Nothing. But okay, here you go. You got to do it. I don't get the feeling that you would do that to your child if you were homeschooling. I get the feeling that you would probably be like, hey, let's talk about this.
Right.
Not everybody's getting that.
Right.
So the concentration level is different.
Much different. Yeah.
At least it is for me.
Mhm. Yeah, and gosh, it's hard because I work full time, but I'd probably still be designing the curriculum. He'd be doing a lot with his dad. I think it could work though. Yeah.
Well, does Mazika, does he like teaching with his son?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he definitely does.
Oh, see, so yeah, I don't see much hesitation or need to. I think the only thing that really gums people up, and it gums me up too, are state standards that kind of make you have to teach to a test, because at some point you will have to take a test with your child, or your child will have to take the test. So I just make sure that right before test time, spend about 3 months, maybe, if that, and we just boom through it. And that's probably one of the only ways that for some folks it works, because it's kind of like, oh, we're just going to get this part done. Okay, but the rest of the year, you got all this other fun stuff you get to do. And to be honest, when you do those last 3 months where you're prepping for a test and stuff, it's really not that hard for them to play catch up. They already kind of, because you spent such a good amount of time enriching them, really truly helping them to understand concepts, they don't have hardly any problem reaching those standards, as they say.
Mm-hmm. So. And I know there's ways for them to get college credit for doing stuff like the straw bale houses and yurts and things like that. I know Penn State had a program when I was working up there. They had a program of building straw bale houses on the reservation, the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Lame Deer.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Mhm. And I know there's a lot more.
Yeah, he can get all kinds of. He can. Oh yeah, you can. The more that he wants to be involved in certain things, your son, and what you want to, what he finds to be a passion of some sort, like art classes. Oh my gosh, so much fun. I mean, he can go to an art class. You got art covers, boom. Go take some drawing classes. Do some Tai Chi. There's your PE. Tai Chi is nothing to laugh at.
Well, he wants to run.
All that breathing.
He wants to be on a track team, and I think some counties will still let you do the schools sports or the county sports or something like that.
Yes, they do. They have to let you. Yeah. Yep. They have to let you. You kind of enroll as a part-time student is kind of what they do, even with grade school and junior high and high school. But yeah, they have to let you because it's a publicly funded, So there you are. Yeah. That's cool stuff. I'm glad you're considering it. I know it is tough when you are working full time. I have to say some of the times where my sons have had to go back into public school have been because I've had to work full time and their dad's working full time. And it's not an easy decision too. But I'll tell you what, I've had my husband be far more supportive of us doing homeschool than not. So, making choices for your family. Just the way it is. It's what we got to do. Just like all those critters out there that you can probably hear barking. But
yes. Yeah, so did you want to...
never stop.
We've got 10 minutes left. Do you want to get any information out there, how people could find out more about the Rescue Organization?
Oh, yeah. Oh, and It's Harmony New Beginnings Animal Rescue. And it's a long name, but I'll post a link on your podcast a little later to the website if anybody's interested. I know it's kind of a joke when we all say donate button. Yes, we do ask for donations. I'm not specifically asking everybody for donations right now, but I'm telling you we do have a donate button. Because every single penny goes to those animals. Every single penny. And I've been witness to it. I do know that it's money well spent. It helps another critter on this planet that we live and breathe with. So folks can make that decision if that's interesting to them or not. I really appreciate you giving me any of your time. You have some very impressive folks that you have talked to. Every single one of them always.
I'm glad it. Yes. I'm back up and running with a different internet, split satellite internet provider.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
getting a little more gigs. But.
Jeez.
Alrighty. Well. Thank you, Vin, for hosting, and thank you, Melanie, for your stories and what you're doing and your encouragement and Is there anything else you wanted to get out today before we really do go?
Just thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk with you again. I always feel like such a big giant dork when I'm talking to you because I'm always like, oh, it's Kira. So excited to talk to Kira. And I just thank you all for, especially like Vin, people like Vin who I've never had conversation with and other people who you talk to. You're amazing to talk to all the people you do, and I get so excited. I'm so excited that I'm one of those people that you talk to. It's so nice. It's very sweet. You think I'm enough of a, not completely dorky enough, but enough to be able to talk to, so that's pretty cool. Thank you so much. That's all I have to say is just thank you. And hi to Mazikia and hi to Connor and just hi to Vin too. Thank you. So
hi to your family, and we'll talk soon. And thanks so much for taking the time out of your Valentine's Day to join us tonight.
It's not a big deal at all, and thank you. And and you're going to bring on the Tribe Called Red, right?
Well, Vin might be able to do that. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Vin will bring on what he brings on.
Sweet. All right, I'll be ready for it.
All right, take us away, Vin.
I'm still looking for the Tribe Called Red. I do have it here somewhere. Hold on.
Oh.
I definitely have it somewhere. Hold on.
Make it rain, baby. Put on whatever you're going to put on. What's he got? Just like, he's got to be going to, can you imagine if this was like the old DJ day?
Go.
Come join me on the bridge.
Thanks, Melanie. Good night.
Thank you, bye.